Greetings, YouTube. My friend Jan sent me some questions that he had about the spell Mirror Image. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Also invisibility, but mostly Mirror Image. So I'm going to be looking at this for the questions first. Then we're going to look at the spell itself in the Pathfinder edition, which is my Pathfinder First Edition, which is my favorite edition of D&D, even though it is not officially called D&D. I've not yet looked at Pathfinder Second Edition. I do not plan on it until I can find a cheap used copy. I do not want to give money to a company to give them the idea that creating a new edition of a game just because they need a new revenue stream is a model I want them to follow. Yeah, no. I didn't think we needed a new version. And again, I haven't looked at it, so they haven't justified it yet in my book. So we're going on with Pathfinder First Edition. So these are the actual spells that my friend Jan asked me. Can I use it to better style myself? So essentially, can he use it as a mirror physically? Like, he cast a spell and now he can look at himself. Interestingly, you would not be seeing the mirror image of your emotions. You'd be seeing the actual image of your emotions. So it would look a little weird if you're used to looking at a mirror. So if you move this hand, the image you're looking at is going to be moving that hand as though you're looking at a puppet as opposed to a mirror image. But I see no reason you could not use a mirror image spell in that particular way, in my opinion, but we're going to keep going. Do mirror images copy the shadow of the origin, or do they cast a different shadow in proper relation to the right light source? Do shadowless creatures' mirror images have shadows? Are vampires immune to the spell? Can I cast a spell on you if I need to see you, and can you see your mirror image? Is shattering a mirror image considered unlucky? So we're going to look at mirror image itself. So we're going to pull up the spell here. So it's a school, which is illusion school, falling into the subcategory of figment. It is a second level bard, blood rager, magus, medium, mesmerist, occultist, psychic, and wizard sorcerer spell. It also falls into the subdomain of deception, second level. Casting time, 1 standard action. Components, visible and semantic, so there is no verbal. Verbal and semantic, so there's no material, which kind of makes sense. It's pure illusion. Range, personal, target you, duration 1 minute per level. So that answers some of the questions that Jan has right out of the get-go. I've already commented, I think you could use it as the ability to see what you look like. So you can't cast it on somebody else. It doesn't work that way. And since this is an illusion, there is nothing to shatter. So I can't cast a spell or target one of the shadows with a weapon or an attack. I am targeting the caster. So that's how that works. So you can't cast it on another person to make them be more visible. Doesn't work that way. You're the only person you can cast a spell on. It's a personal spell. Are vampires immune to the spell? No, they aren't, because they can only cast it on themselves, so they would then want to have a mirror image of themselves. Do shadowless creatures' mirror images have shadows? Again, all the data that the images that are floating around you, not floating, but mimicking your movements, all mimicking exactly the same thing you're doing, derive from the same source of data. So if you are shadowless, your mirror images are going to be shadowless. I think that now next, do mirror images copy the shadow of the origin, or do they cast a different shadow in proper relationship to the light source? Now, this is interesting. So if you could imagine a somewhat contrived circumstances where a caster is in a situation where there is a distinct shadow produced by a light source behind them, say they're standing in a doorway, and their shadows are either side of the doorway in front of them. The shadows, the mirror images rather, don't have a light source behind them, but the caster does. Because the caster is the source of the data, they should all have shadows, in my opinion, even though the mirrored images, which are on either side of the doorway that the person is standing in, do not have a light source to justify said shadows, and nor are they going to have some more complex, which is like the ones right next to them. The caster would be, and the shadows should be at an angle. No, they're all going to look exactly the same because they're coming off of that same source of information. So I think that answers all the questions that Jan has posed me. But it's interesting is I can't think of many shadowless creatures. I mean, like some of the classic vampires don't have shadows. But other than that, I can't think of many creatures that don't have shadows. So tell me if you do know of. I guess I have the Googles at my disposal. I guess I can look it up there. So Jan had some other questions. Can I cast invisibility on Medusa to be safe from her turn to stone shit? Does divination magic see visual illusions? And it says, Jan the Mage approaches your adventuring party, offering quite a sum. He wants to buy your shadow and mirror images as material components. Would you part with one or both? What nefarious spells could Gon cast with these components? So the first question is, can you cast invisibility on a Medusa? So let's take a look at invisibility. Illusion, glamour, second level alchemist, anti-paladin, bard, inquisitor, magus, medium, mesmerist, occultist, psychic, wizard, spiritualist, summoner. Wow, so many things. Domain trickery, bloodline arcane, elemental school void. That makes sense. Okay, one standard action, verbal symbolic material or divine focus. And that is an eyelash encased in gum arabic. And since it does not state that it's consumed, I'm assuming you can reuse it. Range, person, or touch. So you can cast this spell on another individual. You are a creature or object weighing no more than 100 pounds per level, but it is limited by your spell level. So if the target weighs more than you can cover, then they would not count. You could not cast that spell on them. So if it was a particularly large Medusa, I think most Medusas are probably medium size or maybe large. Duration 1 minute per level. And it says will negates harmless. Will negates harmless for an object. Spell resistance does work. Harmless. And again, harmless for an object. So you could cast it on another person, and if the person's power is derived from the ability to see the person, in the case of a gaze attack, then yes, you would then be protected from that gaze attack. Of course, you have to make sure that you are not affected by the gaze attack in casting it, because you have to touch the target. So the caster is going to have to get up there close and personal, touch the target, and touching a Medusa is not wise. That's just me. And it says, does divine magic see visual illusions? And that depends on the divine spell in my book. I'm not going to look all divine spells up. There's bunches of them. But for example, there is a specific see invisible spell that lets you see invisible creatures. There's also true seeing, which lets you see through all forms of not just illusions, but like if a person is polymorphed, you get to see that they're not actually, that's not their real form. So there are divination spells which will cut through the bull and let you see what's going on right in front of you. But it's not like just because it's a divination spell would it allow you to see through a visual illusion. It would have to be specific. There's also other ways of telling if someone has a visual illusion, because there are still things like sound, and there's the weight of the object on the ground. So what they're standing on could have an effect. Like if they're putting in big footprints in the snow, even though it's supposed to be a halfling, that could give you a hint that that's not a halfling in question. Also scent can reveal someone, and low-tech solutions just like powder on the ground, flour on the ground, can help you to determine where a invisible character is. Now at the last statement, which is about, I guess, statement and question, which is about Jan the Mage offering to buy your shadow and or your mirror image. That's powerful, and that, well, it is perfectly appropriate for a high fantasy game. The style, to me, really thinks more mythic than, I mean, I'm thinking that strikes me more like Conan the Barbarian than the classic D&D or Pathfinder kind of game. However, I feel that if you did have someone that could do that, could steal or borrow or buy your shadow or your mirror image, that they're going to have a really powerful connection to you. They're going to have a lot of power over you because they now possess part of your essence. Not to mention, if you don't have a shadow and or a mirror image, people are going to question. Now, you could still cast the mirror image spell, however, to look at yourself if you wanted to, because it isn't actually a mirror image. It's a spell that's called that because it echoes your movement, but you get to look at yourself with it. So that would be one way to look at yourself. But yeah, if you don't have a shadow and you don't have a mirror image, people are going to assume you're some kind of an undead that they just haven't encountered before. And I guess that would have to be something for a very epic kind of thing. If somebody's selling that, it's desperation on a vast scale. The person wants it for a specific reason, to control that person or warp that lineage or what have you. But I imagine you could create some very powerful things from someone's shadow or mirror image that would control them or be used against them. So why anybody would want to do that is a little bit beyond me. Why would you willingly want to sell your shadow or your mirrored image? Unless the person making the offer is the person that created the circumstances under which you'd be willing to do that, and that would be highly suspicious. So yes, I guess you could do that in a high fantasy game, and it could be used for nefarious purposes, but I think that all of them would involve controlling the target that used to possess that shadow and or mirrored image. And I can't really think of many other things unless they're stealing them to emulate the person. So you have their shadow and now you can emulate them in some way. Or you're gathering shadows up. You're buying or stealing shadows to combine the shadows to create some kind of creature. Or you want to be able to pass yourself off in a mirror as that person. So essentially they can put a mask of you on when they look in the mirror, or maybe cast themselves into a mirror that someone else is looking in, making that person think that the person that used to possess that mirrored image is speaking to them or communicating with them. So yes, I guess there would be some way, definitely some both control and trickery process involved in here. I kind of like the idea of buying or stealing shadows to combine them together to create some kind of monster. I kind of think that's kind of cool. But you'd know a lot about a person in my book if you did that. And it would be quite dangerous. So if anybody actually makes that offer to you, either in a game or in real life, don't sell your marriage or your shadow. You need those, and they want to control you or trick those who know you. So nothing good is going to come of that, ever. All right, so I hope this answers all of Jan's questions. I will put them in below so that you can look at the questions yourself. If you'd like to answer them in a different way, or you think I'm completely wrong, feel free to tell me. But yes, that's the fascinating stuff right there, Jan. Thank you for the prompt. I am still suffering from depression, and coming up with new ideas hasn't been easy, so I really do appreciate it.